In this video, we're going to be covering the arrays from our JavaScript course with ChatGPT. We've already covered basic concepts and functions. I'll post a link in the description. So we're going to be covering creating and accessing array elements, iterating over arrays, adding and removing elements from arrays. So we'll be going over all of these. I have already copied it here. So let's come to ChatGPT. I have a quick prompt here. I'm going to say, you will be my JavaScript tutor. You are helpful, clear, and detail-oriented with your explanations. Please explain the following to me in detail with code examples. Use simple words and make it understandable, even by someone who never heard of these concepts. I found out this works well. I'm just going to copy the first. So cut it, paste it here, and let's see what it comes up with. Okay. An array is an ordered collection of values in JavaScript. You can create an array in a few different ways. One way is to use an array literal. This is assigning it to a variable here, which is a list of values enclosed in square brackets and separated by commas, just like this. This creates an array called numbers that contains the values 1, 2, 3. If you were to copy this real and then console log it to print, as you can see, you just get the list back 1, 2, 3. Okay. You can also use array constructor to create an array. The array constructor takes in a list of values just like an array literal, but you must use the new keyword to create a new instance of the array object. Here's an example. So this does the same thing. Just pay attention that we are assigning it to the variable numbers. But we're saying new, and then we're using the array method, I believe. And then if you were to log this, it's going to give us the exact same thing. Okay, let's move on. This creates an array called numbers that contains the values 1, 2, 3. Both of these methods will create an array with the same values. However, there are some differences between using array literal and the array constructor that you should be aware of. One difference is that if you pass a single argument to the array constructor, that is a number, it will create an empty array with that many elements, for example. Okay, so this is pretty cool. The reason why you might want to use the array constructor is because maybe you want to initiate an array with like 5 elements and they're all undefined. Maybe you're going to define them later. Maybe you're building a game and the character has 5 attributes or something like that, and those attributes change, but you don't want to define it ahead of time. Something like that. So if you were to copy this, so if you print it, it logs out, yeah, undefined. I mean, it's empty, but it has 5 elements. So if you were to look at the length of the array, it prints 5. So it has 5 elements, undefined. By the way, you can print array's length by empty array.length. This can be confusing because it looks like you're creating an array with a single element that has a value 5. Here in this case, it's doing that, right? However, this is not the case. Instead, it creates an empty array with 5 elements. On the other hand, if you use an array literal and pass a single number as an element, it will create an array with a single element that is the value of that number. For example, yeah. This is creating it with the array literal, just like we have done earlier. So these are the main differences between using array literals and the array constructor to create arrays in JavaScript. Do you have any questions about this? So we're going to move on, right? We're going to continue accessing array elements, but I just want to point out, like, you can always go ahead and ask questions to it. Tell me more, like, tell me more about this. And then it just will. Like I said, always make sure to look at the official documentation as well. I'll put this in the link. This is a really beautiful documentation. It has everything you need, tutorials, references. You can do a search. For example, if you do arrays search, you learn all about it. Please take a look. The more you read, the more you learn. So it's continuing. Here are a few more things you should know about creating arrays. You can create an array with no elements by using an empty array literal. Just like you can say, just assign it to an empty array, 2 square brackets with nothing in it. You can create an array with a given length and fill it with default values by using array from. Okay, let's take a look at this. So it's creating an array.from, and then it's using a quick arrow function, length 5, and this creates an array filled with zeros. So this is an arrow function. Yeah, interesting. I believe we're gonna talk about, we have talked about arrow functions. If you look at the last video. Okay, moving on. You can create an array from an iterable object, such as a string or an array-like object, using the array.from method. Here we have it. So it is creating an array from a string called hello, and assigning it to array from string. And if we were to print this, we get this. And then array-like object 0 equals 1. It's creating an object, and it has indexes 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, and then length 3. Oh, this is defining an object, and then it's creating an array from that object. Let's just run this real quick. Yeah, so we get an array in this case, in both cases. Okay, this is useful. I hope this helps. So you can keep asking different questions to press the issue, but we're just going to move on to accessing array elements. Actually, let's just do it right here. In ChatGPT, you can go back to your prompt and you click that button that I just did, and then you can make it recreate. I mean, you can restart your prompt. I just didn't want it to get too long, so that's why. So accessing array elements using index notation. In JavaScript, you can access elements of an array using index notation. This means that you can use square brackets to specify the index of the element you want to access. The index of an element in an array is the position of the element in the array, starting from 0. So indexes start from 0. For example, let's say we have an array called colors that contain 3 elements, red, green, and blue. To access the first element of the array, we will use the index notation like this. Colors 0 returns red. Yeah, it's not using the code notation. That's okay. Well, you know what? We'll use it for the next one. We can create an array. Let's just copy this real quick. We'll also use the help from the GitHub Copilot. I have it running right here. Create array from, yeah, here we go. I just don't want to use the var. Let's just use let. Let's fill the log. Color 0 is red. So to access any given index, for example, the red in this case, we need to use 0. So the way you notate it or to write it is you give the name of the array, and between square brackets give the index. If you print this, we get red. The first element is green, and the last element is blue. So that would be 2. So this returns red, the colors square bracket 1 returns green, and the other one blue, using the for loop. Did we ask it about the for loop? Oh yeah, so let's redo it. I hope this time around it uses the markup. Okay, it wasn't using the markup, so I just stopped this other one and I just added use markup. At the end of it, we're just going to again ask the same question. The for loop. I've removed the index notation. Okay, I was just making sure it was writing it in markup. Anyway, so here's some information about accessing array elements and using the for of loop in JavaScript. Accessing array elements. In JavaScript, you can access the elements of an array using an index. An index is a number that's so we already know that. The index of the first element in an array is 0, and the index of the last element is always array.length -1. Oh, so this is what we had to do. Is that so? In square brackets? I'm sorry if I'm being annoying with this. No. Oh yeah, gotta put it like this. Last time, promise. No, what am I doing wrong? Oh, like that? There we go. No, never mind. Okay, here's an example of an array of numbers, how you can access its elements using indices. So here we go. We already talked about this. So 0 is the first element, 4 is the last element. You can also use variables as indices. For example, let I, yeah. So we're defining I to be 0, so we can use it as an indice. And then if we say I equals 2, then it's going to be the second element. I mean, the third element, since it starts from 0, 1, and then 2. The for of loop is a looping construct in JavaScript that allows you to iterate over the elements of an array or any other iterable object, such as a string or set. Here's the syntax for the for of loop. So if we say for, then open a parentheses, variable of iterable, and then the code to be executed. Here's an example of using the for of loop to iterate over the elements of an array. So we have this array, and then we start a for loop, and then we define a number of numbers. So this number is going to be a stand-in for each one of the elements as it iterates, as the for loop rolls over it. So the number is going to be at first 1, and then 2, and then 3, eventually 5. Then we're just going to log the numbers. So this is going to access each element and print it one by one, as you can see. So we're just printing the number, right? So number of numbers. So first one is 1, printed 1, because we are printing the number. So on and so forth. The for of loop is similar to the for in loop, which iterates over the properties of an object. However, the for in loop is not recommended for iterating over arrays because it includes properties that are inherited through the prototype chain. The for of loop, on the other hand, only iterates over the elements of the array, making it more suitable for this purpose. Okay, I'm not going to look into for in loop, but feel free to ask it yourselves. Okay, we're done with this. Moving on to iterating over arrays. All right, let's just have all of this. And okay, iterating over arrays is a way to loop through each element in an array and perform a specific action on it. There are several ways to do it in JavaScript. Here are some examples of each method. The for loop. So this is not a for of loop. For of loop was assigning the element directly, right? In this case, it's just doing element-wise. With this for loop, that is saying we're actually going to be using the index. Let's take a look. So we have an array, ARR. We again for loop start with for, and then we open the parentheses and define our conditions, I guess. Then we define a variable, let I. Do you remember from earlier? We can call the index of the array from a variable. So we're defining a variable here saying 0, then semicolon. Then we say, as long as this number is less than the length of the array, the length of the array is 4, because it starts from 0, then we do I++, which increases the I by 1 each time this for loop is activated, is running. And then we just log the element in that index. So we start with 0, and then we print the first one, which is going to be 1. Then we increase I by 1, then so on and so forth. If we run it right here, as you can see, we get the exact same thing as we gotten before. This code will output each element in the array to the console, starting at the first element, ending at the last element. The for loop uses 3 parts: the initial value of the loop counter, I, this one, the variable, the condition for the loop to continue, I must be less than the length of the array, true, and the increment value, I is increased by 1 each iteration. Please pay attention, they're all separated by semicolons. And the code that we're going to execute is within curly brackets. Okay, using the for each method, we again have now we say arr.forEach, and then open parentheses, function, we're defining a function, element, this is its argument, its parameter, and then curly brackets, console.log element. This is a bit like for of loop. Here we go. If we run it, we again get the same thing. So this function essentially is a simple, I believe we could have turn it into an arrow function, if I'm not mistaken, and make it more concise. Well, I'm really failing. Oh, we have to get rid of the function. Yeah, it should do the same thing. Yep. So this is a quick way of doing it. It's concise. Anyway, using the map, this code will output each element in the array to the console, but it uses the for each method, which is a built-in function of the array object. The for each method takes a callback function as an argument, which is this one right here. It's just defined right on the spot, which is a function that is called for each element in the array. The callback function takes one argument, which is element, which is the current element being processed, and then it logs it out. Using the map method, again we have the array, and then we assign it to a new array. And then we say arr.map. This is a method. I actually made a short video about this. And then we again have a function, which is a callback function, which returns the element times 2, and then assigns it to a new array. So if you print this new array, it should be every element in the original array, but multiplied by 2. If you run this, as you see, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So this map function map method went over each element using this callback function, and then multiplied it by 2, and returned it and assigned it to this new array. And then when we print it out, this is what we get. Map is really powerful. Let's see. This code will create a new array that contains the elements of the first original array, multiplied by 2. The map method also takes a callback function as an argument, but it returns a new array that is the result of the callback function being applied to each element in the array. Using the filter method, we have the array, and now we're assigning it to a new array. Here we say arr.filter. Again, it takes a callback function and returns the element remainder to strictly equal to 0. So what this will do is it will roll over the elements. It'll take 1, and then it'll say, okay, what is 1 divided by 2? That's half, right? 0.5. Is this strictly equal to 0? No. Then forget about it. 2. If you divide it by 2, then you have no remainder, which is 0. That's good. 3 is not going to be, because it's 1.5. 4 is going to have no remainders, and 5 is going to be 2.5. Well, I mean, it's a float, right? So it's going to be 0.5 is going to be the remainder for the odd numbers. So it's only going to be 0 for the even numbers. So this will actually return only those numbers that can be divided by 2 and have no remainders. Oh, you know what? I made a mistake, actually. Yeah, well, I'm silly. If you divide 3 by 2, then your remainder is 1. If you divide 5 by 2, then your remainder is 1, because 2 goes into 5 twice, which is 4. 1 is the remainder. Yeah, I'm being silly. Anyway, okay. When we print this, we only get the 2 and 4. This code will create a new array called new array that contains only the elements of the original array that are even numbers divisible by 2. The filter method also takes a callback function as an argument, but it returns a new array that contains only the elements that pass the test in the callback function. In this case, the test is whether the element is divisible by 2. Using the reduce method, this is another powerful tool. Again, we have the array, and we're going to assign it to a variable called sum, and then arr, the array, original array, dot reduce, and then we have this function. And here we have the total. Total here is what's called an accumulator. It's going to be, it's going to start with an initial value. Here it's actually right after the curly brackets is assigned to 0. And then so that's defined, total, okay, starts at 0. And then we're gonna go over the elements. This is for that, the element argument. And then we're just going to be returning the total plus the element. So this reduce is going to run again and again, and eventually going to return the sum, which should be 15. If we run it, we get 15. Here we can ask why 15 to get our Copilot. Let's see, yeah. So the first total is 0 and element is 1 at first. And then total becomes 1, and then element becomes 2. Because let's say total plus element is 1. And then total is now 1 and element is 2. Then total plus element is going to be 3 because total is 1 and element is so on and so forth. If we keep doing this, we get to 15. This code will output the sum of all the elements in the array. The reduce method takes a callback function as an argument, and it also takes an initial value for the accumulator, total in this case. The callback function takes two arguments, the accumulator and the current element being processed. The accumulator is updated with the result of the callback function and returned for each iteration until all elements have been processed and a final value is returned. In this case, the final value is it stopped, but it's 15. So you can ask more questions about all this, but we have covered it. Let's move on to adding elements to arrays. So we have some methods here, so they're going to be cool. Oh yeah, let's go back to the top. Adding elements to arrays. There are several ways to add elements to an array in JavaScript. These include using the push, unshift, and splice methods. Let's take a closer look at each one of these methods. The push method. The push method allows you to add one or more elements to the end of an array. Here's an example of how to use the push method. Oh, again, it's not doing the markup. That's fine. Here we have, let's change it to, we have an array. And we want to add mango to the end of the array. So then we use this. We say fruits.push mango, and we console log it. We get all three. Mango has been added to the end. That is the push method. The array now contains all three. The unshift method allows you to add one or more elements to the beginning of the array. So again, we have the same array, and if we wanted to add pair to the apple and banana array, and then console log it, we're going to get the pair in the beginning this time. And you can actually stack these, right? You can say fruits.push orange. So it's going to add orange to the end. Okay. After that, the fruits will have three elements, and then it's going to add pair to the beginning. So when we print this, the pair is in the beginning and orange is in the end. Apple and banana are still there. The array now contains the splice method. Splice method allows you to add or remove elements from an array at a specific index. Okay, let's see how it's used. Add mango and pair to the array at index 1. Let's take this code. At index 1. Okay. If we run it, it did add mango and pear at index 1 because apple is at 0, banana is at 1, but since we're splicing, mango becomes 1, and then since we're also adding pear, it just inserts it, I guess. Explain, let's see, explain 1, 0 in splice method. 1 is the index where we want to add the new element. 0 is the number of elements we want to remove. Oh, okay. So we're not removing any. That's why it's 0. I just wanted to make sure. So the first one is how many in the index of where we want to add. 0 is the number of elements we want to remove. That's what it says. The array now contains apple, mango, pear, and banana. Note, the splice method can only be used to remove elements from an array. If you want to remove elements using splice, splice method can also be used to remove elements from an array. If you want to remove elements using splice, you can specify the number of elements you want to remove in the second argument. For example, fruits splice 1, 2 would remove the elements at index 1 and index 2. Okay. So now we have a fruit array with 4 elements. So we're going to start at index 1 and remove the next 2 elements. If we log it, so that it's going to first print our original array, and starting from index 1, starting from mango, 2 elements are removed, mango and pear, and we're back to the original. That's awesome. Very cool. Let's use the splice. Well, we already used the splice method, but let's give it back to it. Maybe it'll say something new about it. All right. Removing elements from arrays is a common task in programming, and there are several ways to do it in JavaScript. Using the pop method. Pop method is used to remove the last element from an array. It also returns the value of the element that was removed. So it returns it as well. So you can assign it to a variable. So here we have, yeah, it's still not using the markup. That's why it does that sometimes. It just actually, it was saying their servers are busy, maybe that's why. Not sure. Okay, what does pop method use to remove the last element? So this will remove orange as it is the last element. Oh, and we're actually printing. So let's also console.log fruits. Here we go. So let's print the original array, and then we're assigning what is being popped to the last fruit. So because we're doing it after the pop. So the new array is apple and banana because it has orange has been removed. And if we were to print the last fruit, it is orange. Using the shift method. The shift method is used to remove the first element from an array. It also returns the value of the element that was removed. So this is the same thing, but other way around. Let's actually first log it, not the length. I guess my recorder, my screen recording just stopped in the middle anyway. I guess we were at shift. I'm just going to continue from shift. So shift does the opposite. If we log it, the first element is removed. If we log the console.log the original array, then apple is removed and assigned to the first fruit, right? And after that, it still wants to talk about splice. Actually, let's read it. Splice method is a bit more powerful than the pop and shift methods because it allows you to remove elements from any position in the array. It takes 3 arguments: the index of the element to start removing from, the number of the elements to remove, and any additional elements to add to the array. Here's an example. This is, again, let's actually grab this. We have an array with 5 elements. Then we can remove those elements, starting from index 1, which will be banana, and 2 elements, but banana and orange. If we console log the fruits first, and then removed fruits, we'll see that banana and orange has been removed, and what is being removed is assigned to removed fruits, which is banana and orange. You can also use splice method to add elements to the array by providing the additional elements as the third argument. So this is pretty cool. Let's take this. This really explains it. So when we do this, what are we doing? So we're going to assign to removed fruits. We're going to use splice. We're going to start with index 1. So apple is 0, banana is 1. Then we're going to remove 2 elements. So we're going to remove banana starting at index 1 and orange going to be removed. And then kiwi and pineapple is going to be added at index 1. So when we do this and console log fruits and remove fruits, as you see, banana and orange has been removed and replaced with kiwi and pineapple, and removed fruits are banana and orange. This is pretty awesome. And before my recording died, I actually was saying that arrays have many more methods. We're not going to go through each and every one of them with detailed examples, but please check out the documentation, ask ChatGPT about them. Here I just asked for a list of all the array methods in JavaScript with a brief description. I'm not actually sure if it gave me all the list of all the methods, but concat combines 2 or more arrays and returns a new array. Join joins all elements of an array into a string. We talked about pop and push. Reverse is the order of the elements in the array. Shift, we talked about slice. Slice returns a new array that includes a portion of the original array. Sort sorts the elements of an array in ascending order. I believe you can also reverse it. ToString converts an array to a string and returns the result. Unshift adds 1 or more elements to the beginning of an array and returns the new length of the array. Index_of returns the index of the first occurrence of an element in an array. LastIndex_of returns the index of the last occurrence of an element. Because you can have an array with multiple occurrences. Like, I mean, you can easily have multiple bananas here, you know, and get the index of the first occurrence of banana, then fruits index of banana. See, get the index of the last occurrence of banana, That's the current index of banana. So the first index would be 1, last index would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's log it. And here too. So if you print, you should get 1 and 6. Yeah. For each executes a function for each element in the array. Map creates a new array. We talked about these. Reduce reduce an array to a single value by applying a function to each element in the array starting from the last element. So it does exactly what reduce does, but it's in reverse order. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe to be notified of future videos. I really enjoy making these videos, and see you next time.